It's now time for the Sit Down with Dontony.
The Sit Down, where Dontony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Dontony.
And now, your host, Dontony.
I'm getting too old to be shoveling snow. Oh, God in heaven. Oh, yeah. It is Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. And 2-3 weeks ago, we had 12 inches of snow and ice here in New York. Not that big of a deal. What sucked was the fact that we had about 2.5 weeks straight that the temperature didn't get above freezing, so nothing would melt. So now, as we speak, and hopefully we don't lose connection, but as we speak, they are projecting 18 to 24 inches of snow in my neck of the woods. 18 to 24 inches. And a lot of you know this. We talked about it on Thursday. My parents just left for Florida this morning. Talk about perfect timing, right? They left at 6:30 this morning. The flight was not canceled, and I'm now bird sitting, and we're about to get 2 feet of snow. So to say that tomorrow is going to be a little bit crazy is an understatement. So, what I plan on doing is, no joke, tonight, if it's not too windy after I finish this show, I'm going to probably go outside and shovel for like a half hour just to get some of the snow, out of the way. And then we'll see what it's like tomorrow morning. I'm just worried about the wind. Because my father is petrified that we're going to get another superstorm Sandy. I don't see anybody in the media talking like that because trust me, if that was a possibility, I think everybody and their mother would be doing videos about it. But my parents, their house got leveled during Sandy. A lot of you remember that shit. Rough times, man. But they were able to pull it out, and God, if that were to happen again, and the big concern is the wind, 60, 70 miles an hour winds. The only thing I'm hoping for, and a lot of you probably will know what I'm talking about, sometimes having insane winds during a snowstorm is perfect. Because if the wind is done just perfectly, it blows the snow to the car next door. So, and I know somebody's going to say, well, DT, that means the car next to you could probably get it too. Yeah, but I'm near the end. So there's a very good chance that one side of my car will have almost no snow on it. So that's what I'm hoping for. But how's everybody doing? I tell you, I put this thumbnail together literally about an hour ago, trying to figure out what we were going to talk about. And I think we got some pretty pertinent topics to get into. The WWE TV no politics thing, I kind of backed into because a few of you out there have been sending questions for the shows and were asking me, if the fuck ice chants are going to invade WWE television. And, anything is possible, obviously, but I unearthed a video. Sami Zayn made a comment last year that I think most people didn't pay attention to. And I get it. I think a lot of you out there probably will watch the video, and I'm going to share with you. You're going to watch the video and you're going to say, well, Triple H is obviously involved with Trump, and obviously they're not going to want any anti-Trump, stuff on television. So sure, they're not going to do it. But it's much deeper than that. This is more of a TKO thing than anything else. But, and then Janel Grant broke her silence. Oh, I have a few things to say about that. But I will tell you, most of my comments are directed towards the media, directed towards elements of the IWC. And I'm going to expose something. And it's going to cost me all the ad revenue on this episode. And since, our audience is a little bit smaller, ad revenue is very important. But I'm going to sacrifice the ad revenue for this show to show you something that props to all of you out there that reminded me of this. About 2 years ago, Kevin and I had a very interesting discussion about the Liv Morgan Dominic Mysterio storyline. And something went down on WWE television that, was considered in a lot of people's eyes a direct shot at Janel Grant. Lo and behold, the DTKC show looks at it a little bit differently. And I was kind of shocked at how no one had brought up this clip. So we're going to share that a little bit too. But you know what I also got? I know the Sun put it out, and, I wasn't going to use their version, but for those that don't know, a lot of people out there put in a Freedom of Information Act, a FOIA request to get the police body cam footage of Vince McMahon's accident. I had put one in also. I do have an account with Connecticut, their legal system, and a couple of months ago, I put in a FOIA request. And I guess over the last couple of days, Connecticut started fulfilling those requests. Because literally, I got an email saying that the video I had requested is available. And this is the Vince McMahon car accident footage. Now, the funny thing about it was when I accessed it, I did not realize that it was going to include the actual collision, the actual impact of Vince McMahon's car. And I was like, ooh, let me rush, put it online. I'm sure other people requested it too, but let me put it online. And lo and behold, the fucking Sun put it out there, just like this, complete with corny ass music, if any of you watch that video. So I'm going to share some of that footage for all of you out there. I tell you, when you watch the footage, are you a little bit confused as to why Vince McMahon was not arrested? I'm a little surprised Vince McMahon was not arrested. I don't care what excuse he gave to the cop. He should have been arrested. And this is not me suddenly becoming pro Janel Grant or anti-Vince or anything like that. The law is the law is the law. And when you watch the footage and then you hear what the cop asks Vince and why that man was not arrested, I do not understand. I know he was charged with a ticket, but you watch the footage, you'll see what I'm talking about. But what do we get into first? What do we get into first? Everybody who's live, just what's on your mind? What's the first thing you want to talk about? Elimination Chamber, the Vince accident, the Janel Grant appearance in Connecticut, the WWE politics. What are we doing? Obafemi versus Kit Wilson. It is what it is. Obafemi, they're hyping up. I'll tell you this much. I saw people in power in the media world saying, Obafemi is going to be even bigger than Brock Lesnar. Based on what? And this is not anti-Obafemi. This sounds like the same stupidity when Tony D'Angelo debuted on NXT television and had a spectacular debut. And I saw people in the media that same day give him the title. Just put the belt on him. He's got it. He's got it. Really? Seriously? You know what? I'm going to share something right at the beginning. A little plug towards our history show. I put up the history episode yesterday, and you don't have to tune in if you don't want to, but I want to bring to your attention something that if you notice the last couple of days, not one person talked about it. Not one. And it was this week. In fact, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was the 5-year anniversary of a press release that WWE put out. And I was shocked that not one person brought it up. Just to give you an idea. I'm older, obviously. I do remember way back when there was a WWE conference call, and I know I've brought this up over the years. Linda McMahon was on the conference call, and they were asking Linda McMahon about some of the prospects of tomorrow. And Linda McMahon in that conference call, and I do have the audio somewhere, she says, we have 2 prospects that we believe are the future of the WWE. One of them was Randy Orton, and the other one was John Cena. And this is going back, over 20 years. And you go back, and I think we all agree, you look at that class coming out of OVW, even California, if you want to go a little bit further. You think about Brock Lesnar. You think about Shelton Benjamin. You think about Randy Orton. I always put Shelton in there. I feel bad. He always gets left out. I put Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, Randy Orton, and John Cena. To a lesser extent, Rico Constantino. We show him some love. He is a friend of the family. The family, I should say. And, a lot of people go back to that time, 0102. And that's the greatest crop of prospects at the same time. Oh, Batista also. Yes. Oh my God. I knew it was Mississippi. Batista. Yeah, a lot of people say that is the greatest crop to come out at one time. For all of you that may have forgot this, go look it up if you think I'm exaggerating. And I even left some faces off of this because it just wasn't enough room. 5 years ago, WWE announced the mass signings of all these prospects. Tony D'Angelo, Gigi Dolan, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Braun Breaker, Cora Jade, JC Jane, Zoe Stark, and even Andre Chase. Look, Parker Boudreaux's not even on there. Oh, yeah, and Taya Valkyrie and LA Knight as well, but obviously they were veterans, so I put them in the small. Just think about that. Talk about prospects. All of those individuals were all announced and all signed at this time 5 years ago. Let that sink in. Especially when we have the Elimination Chamber coming up and Trick Williams. Trick Williams is a superstar. But you look at that list, 5 years, 1 day. I sound like Jey Uso. 5 years, 1 day. No, is that huge or is that huge? Go look it up. It's pretty wild. I was shocked nobody brought it up, but I figured I'd share that. So. Oh, there were other names too. I mean, like I said, we just ran out of room. But big deal 5 years ago. Look at how many, I tell you one thing, you give props to WWE, give props to AEW, give props to whoever you want for anything. But I will tell you, as far as spotting stars of tomorrow, I mean, you look at that entire list, there might be one name or two that really it wasn't Blake Christian on there also, like AQA was on there. There might be one or two that are a little bit further behind. But when you realize almost every single person on that list has gone to bigger and better things. And I'm not talking about LA Knight and Taya Valkyrie because they were already stars. I'm talking about rookies, stars of tomorrow. That's crazy. That is crazy. I just figured I'd share it because no one else is going to. But all right, so let's look back. All right, Janel Grant. There's a little back and forth with Janel Grant and Vince McMahon. All right, you know what? Let's show the Vince McMahon footage first. All right, because it's only about 4 minutes long. I'm not playing Janel Grant footage tonight. I'll read you a couple of quotes that she made. And some that really got my attention. And I'll tell you my overall take of things. My take is going to be completely different than almost anybody out there. I promise you that. But I want you all to check out the Vince McMahon footage. Now, just to set this up a little bit, the Connecticut State Police, I don't know if it was Route 14, I don't remember the actual highway, but Connecticut State Police, when they did the dash cam, there's no audio. So when you watch Vince McMahon have the accident, because you do actually see the collision, there's no audio. So the first 30 to 45 seconds, there's no audio at all. I know some websites out there spliced in their own audio. Kind of reminded me of the Beulah McGillicuddy Penthouse video from back in the day. That's the most infamous time that I ever got video of something that had no audio whatsoever. And people just became very creative and just spliced in their own music or commentary, whatever you wanted to put at the time. But let me show you the Vince McMahon footage first. So this is what I got directly from Connecticut State Police. Here is Vince McMahon on the highway. That is Vince. Now, that is a cop car behind him. All right, that's a cop car behind him, and Vince McMahon is going about 100 miles an hour at this point. Vince is not stopping. All right, and the cop is got his lights on. So now Vince McMahon in the right lane. Look, he's got his foot on the brake and boom, there he goes. Clips the other car, slams into the guardrail, and that's it. His car's fucked. But just drove right into that person. Right into that person. So, hold on. Let's watch it one more time. Let's watch it one more time. Just to see the impact of it. Here he is. Again, this is a cop behind him. All right. The cop has got lights and sirens on. Vince McMahon goes to the right. And I thought for a minute he was going to pull over, but he doesn't. He stays in the right, and there's a car doing normal speed in the right lane. And for some reason, Vince McMahon, at the last second, look, he's got his brake on. Look. Boom. Clips the car. Clips the car. So now I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and I'll let you watch the footage and what Vince has to say. Here you go. Courtesy of the Connecticut State Police. All right. Any day now.
You need an ambulance?
No, I don't.
All right. Why were you driving over 100 miles an hour?
It's my granddaughter's birthday. I got to get this the next exit.
Right. Did you see me trying to catch up to you behind you?
I didn't see that. I saw lights, but it didn't look normal.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to you, and you keep taking off.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to outrun you.
I know. I understand that, but that's why I was very confused. Right? Because it wasn't like you were running. It was just like you almost hit, I think, 115 miles an hour. All right, and then you just hit someone because you weren't paying attention. Were you looking at your phone?
No, trying to drive. No, I'm not looking at my phone.
The person was right in front of you. There's got to be a reason you hit him.
No. I haven't been driving my car in God knows how long.
Right. It was right in front of you. You went straight at it at 100 miles an hour. I'm just making sure you're not having a medical condition or anything. Do you need an ambulance?
No.
All right. Just your registration. Is your license in here?
No, it's in my pocket.
All right.
I've driven this car quite some time.
It's fast, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, too fast. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon, how you doing? Hi. I'm the investigating trooper. Okay. So, how you doing? I know who you are. So.
Can you send out like Reddit unit?
So Trooper Robbins that was following in the unmarked vehicle said you were doing over 100 miles an hour. All right. Before you struck the vehicle. So.
Hello. Hulk died. Shit.
All right, so I'm going to be issuing you a misdemeanor summons for reckless driving, okay? So it's just going to take me about 10 minutes to write it up. I'll give you a court date, probably within 3 weeks or a month. Do you reside in Connecticut? I'm not sure. Okay, so it'll be, where are we? Westport?
Yeah.
All right, so it'll be the court right here. I'll give you the address and everything. All right, so just give me 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we'll get you out of here, okay? Yes, sir.
All right. Why was he not arrested? Honestly, I mean, I've watched enough videos of cops with their dash cams. You have lights and sirens on. You don't stop. You're doing over 100 miles an hour, and you go right into the car in front of you. Why is not an arrestable offense? So, again, it just feels like he got preferential treatment because of who he is. Almost like, we're going to inconvenience you for 10 minutes. We're going to give you a citation. You got to go to court. It'll be about a month. And I don't know, man. I'm a little surprised that he was not arrested for this. Getting charged is fine and everything, but should have been in handcuffs. He did not stop for lights and sirens, drove over 100 miles an hour, caused an accident, and does not get arrested over it. I don't get it. So I just figured I'd share it with you because we got it. All right. The Janel Grant situation. Obviously, we'll get into it a little bit more tomorrow because tomorrow is more of like a news show / Raw review, shit like that. So I'll probably splice in some Janel Grant audio as well. I don't want to put the video here because I don't know if I'm going to get smacked with copyright shit. And I'm already going to lose ad revenue when I share something else in a moment that's WWE copyrighted. But, the Janel Grant situation, here's my honest take about it. Now, if you've been living under a rock or you're new to the show, I have been very, very outspoken about this situation, and I'm not going to repeat everything that we've talked about for the last 2+ years. All right, but ever since the beginning, I always felt that this was going to arbitration. I made predictions early on that this is more the court of public opinion than anything else. In this day and age, even the perception of being a victim will make you a millionaire. So even if the court said to Vince, you still owe her $2 million, you got to give her $2 million, plus her attorney fees, plus interest, whatever it ends up being, she's going to make money 10 times over as well. All right. So I've always felt that it's going to go to arbitration. I've also always said, in my opinion, all right, the problem that I think a lot of people had from the beginning is there's a lot of hate for Vince McMahon already. All right, no question, there's a lot of hate for Vince McMahon. The problem is you cannot take that hate and use that as a reason to convince yourself or to try to convince others that this time around he committed a crime. He committed trafficking. All right, he did this, he did that. And that's not me supporting Vince. It's just that there is Janel Grant's version, there is Vince McMahon's version, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. Problem is, unless there's fucking video cameras, which I honestly think there were, I think Vince McMahon, in my opinion, is a pervert. He gives me Diddy vibes. The fact he's recording wrestlers from the 1980s in the back for no reason whatsoever. You look at Razor Ramon with the fucking 90s Fubas. And here's the WWF cameras just following everybody around. I turn around and be like, yo, Chico, why are you fucking following me? I'm going to take a shit. Like, you want to come into the stall too? You want to wipe my ass? Like, they recorded everything. Now, for us as wrestling fans, it's cool. We just saw today, they're showing footage of the first ever Elimination Chamber, putting it together, and all the wrestlers said they recorded everything. I've always had the perception that Vince McMahon is a sexual deviant. Vince McMahon, being a billionaire, gets to play around with his money. And unfortunately, my friends, and this is something that I think a lot of people in the media refuse to accept, is that there are women out there that absolutely shower me with love, shower me with gifts, shower me with praise, make me feel beautiful, make me feel wanted, make me feel like $1 million. And just as much as a guy could get pussy whipped, that's the phrase we used to use, a woman could get that way as well. I'm not saying that that's what happened with Janel Grant, because again, at the end of the day, we don't know the truth, all right? All we know is what each side is saying. But when you understand the attorney that is involved with this, and the fact that I believe Janel Grant's father, when he was alive, helped the attorney get into the position where she is, and then you find out that she's a hardcore Democrat, and then you think about Trump, then you think about Vince, you think about the political side of this, and that's what this has turned into. This has turned into politics. It's turned into Trump and Vince versus Democrats and Janel Grant. And that's sad on both sides. That is sad on both sides. But the thing is, when people ask me, DT, what do you think happened? And, when somebody posted this, okay, these are some of the items in the obviously the lawsuit that has been revealed that Vince gave her over a 3-year period. In 2019, he gave her medical care and cosmetic services, gave her expensive tickets for Belmont Stakes Clubhouse, premium WrestleMania VIP tickets, $2,000 gift card, Godiva chocolates, 2020, he gave her $20,000 towards a surgery, pearl and a diamond necklace, blue cashmere cardigan, Burberry scarves, cashmere sunglasses, flowers every other week. 2021, she got a brand new BMW 420xi. Go look up the book value of a brand new 2022 BMW 430xi, $5,000 gift certificate for a spa. It just goes on and on and on. So, you see all of that take. And then you hear that she was not in the right mental state, that she was under the influence of stuff, my looking at this is watching Vince from afar and hearing about some of the awful shit that he's done in the past. We know about, the money that he paid, which we believe is Christy Hemme to keep her quiet. The Rita Chatterton, remember Tanzabar? We covered that in real time. Tanzabar, the shit that happened in California. There's been other things as well. But at the end of the day, I've always felt that Vince McMahon's lifelong dream was to find a freak. He fantasized about it on WWE television with Tori Wilson and Sable and whoever else. And then finally, in his mid-70s, he finds his freak in the form of Janel Grant. Because after the NDA was signed, all right, this is probably something that a lot of people don't focus on. After the NDA was signed, Vince has messages from her where she wants to continue the relationship. He wants to be in the same building as her. She wants to be in the same building as her. This, looking at all of that is, when the gifts were coming and all the money was coming in and all the love and attention, and then, like I said, unfortunately, you look at movies like Eyes Wide Shut, you look at some OnlyFans accounts, you look at some Pornhub. Yes, that is entertainment and fantasy. But the idea that because she looks like the girl next door, a white, very college-educated woman that seems like she is innocent, who would ever think that she could want to, be sexually involved with a whole bunch of guys at the same time? Because for you and I, we can never envision something like that. I don't know if that's what happened or if it didn't happen. One thing that I always felt about this was that if Vince McMahon didn't stop paying, we probably wouldn't have what we have now. So when I hear that she's going to speak in Connecticut, and we talked about this a week before everyone else, it was a little bit strange because she wants reform for NDAs. And my take on it is that if you're so against NDAs, why did you sign it? Why did you want to continue a relationship afterwards? And listen, maybe she was, my honest take is that she was scorned. She fell head over heels for Vince McMahon and then realized that Vince McMahon decided, no, I'm done with you. I don't want to be bothered with you no more. And I think that devastated her. I'm sure there was depression. I'm sure there was manipulation. I'm sure there was a lot. And yeah, you have a bad relationship. That could fucking send you to the loony farm. That could send you into a mental hospital. I've known people who have had nervous breakdowns over bad relationships. My God. You go to the hip hop world, go check out what happened last week to a fucking kid, over a breakup. Just, decided that's it. It happens whether you're white or you're black. It happens whether you're 45 or 25. It happens whether you're a millionaire or a pauper. All right. So we don't truly know. The problem is that there's a lot of people out there that have made up their minds. And if you made up your mind and you feel Vince is guilty, Vince is guilty, Vince is guilty, okay, so be it. But when people out there intentionally push a narrative, especially those in media, simply because they're anti-Vince, that's where it becomes very dangerous. And she spoke, and if you look at the subtitle under her name, Survivor. And the fact is, I'm not saying that she's not a survivor because, look, I always brought up Joey Ryan as a great example. Joey Ryan, great example. That guy is someone that I don't know if he committed a crime, but in my neck of the woods, that is a typical pig, Jersey Shore jerk-off. Someone that would go to a club and say whatever he possibly can to a girl so he could get laid. Lie to her, manipulate her, say a whole bunch of things, lie about his education, lie about his employment, promise this, promise that, just to get laid. All right. Is that criminal or is that an asshole? That's the thing. And when you look at this stuff with Vince McMahon, was it trafficking? We don't know. We don't know what else is out there. So the fact that she's speaking in Connecticut and you have women behind her, if you watch closely, they're almost in tears. Like she is, this big survivor. And one of the quotes she said was, "I really shouldn't be here. By a series of miracles that I can't account for, I'm alive today. On June 15, 2022, my life was rewritten into someone else's storyline, and I was globally outed by the Wall Street Journal." Okay? Do I think that she's full of shit? No, I don't. Because I honestly think if this is someone who believed that Vince was her guy, not just, maybe a possible husband, but, lover, father figure, role model, protector, just lavishing her with love, emotion, gifts. If she was sexually, out there, not like us, I always felt that Vince, his entire lifetime, was looking for a freak, and he finally found one. And then when it was time to, move on, all right, maybe, this is going in a territory that maybe Vince McMahon, don't even want to get in. I think she was devastated by it. But again, it's just opinion. Speculate. Don't incriminate. Until you have beyond a reasonable doubt, not Vince is guilty, Vince is guilty, Vince is guilty. No, don't incriminate, speculate. That's all we can do. And unfortunately, you have people out there that push a certain narrative because they hate Vince. And if you've paid close attention to some people in the news world, they are very, 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 very pro Janel Grant. In their heart and in their mind, they may truly believe that Janel Grant is absolutely a victim. Even though she accepted all this stuff, Vince McMahon is just evil and he did everything that was accused. Fine. But if you're going to report it, you have to have some responsibility, especially that you're discussing this situation directly with the law firm, the legal team of Janel Grant. How do you call yourself an unbiased reporter when you're having communications with the legal team? and you push a narrative. And I'll give everybody an example. How many of you have seen this? Here's where I lose my ad revenue. How many of you seen that the last couple of days? Janel Grant, during this press conference, her speech, says she was weaponized because of a storyline that we saw on Raw. And if you remember, this was the Judgment Day. This was Liv Morgan making the moves on Dominic Mysterio. Dominic is reluctant to accept it. She texts him a provocative photo. Carlito's got a look on his face like, yo, that's cool. Anybody remember that? Everybody remember the hotel key? Remember when Finn Balor put the hotel key in his pocket? Right? You remember all of that. Yeah, we talked about it. And yes, Kevin and I, God rest his soul, at the time said, you think they're taking a shot at Janel Grant? You know, was Janel Grant the pursuer here? I don't think anybody ever thought that was the case. So if Janel Grant wasn't the obsessed pursuer, then how is Liv Morgan, the storyline, mocking Janel Grant? Isn't it the opposite? Wouldn't Vince be the pursuer, the stalker, manipulating her, giving her, medication and things in her body that, warps her state of mind, showering her with promises and gifts and fake love and attention and making isn't that Vince pursuing her and not the opposite? So that's always been speculation, but Kevin and I brought up something else 2 years ago, and I appreciate everyone out there who reached out the last 24 hours, because it's not that I forgot, but I totally forgot the moment. And when I watched it back, I was like, holy shit. Holy shit. If you watch the Judgment Day segment side by side with what I'm about to show you, you'll understand why I have a problem with certain elements of the media out there. If you don't like Vince McMahon, fine. But if you don't like someone, you still have to report facts, and you still have to report truths, and you still have to report things fair and balanced. And when that Judgment Day segment aired, and you have certain media out there in the ear of Janel Grant's lawyers and saying WWE weaponized Janel Grant just now, you do know that's a shot at Janel Grant. If you feel that way, fine. But when you don't bring up another major storyline that we covered and you totally no-sell it, even to this day, those elements of the media have never, ever, ever brought this up. Forget Janel Grant for a second. Go back to the Judgment Day Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio storyline. Liv Morgan making the moves on Dom. Judgment Day is telling Dom she's trouble, stay away from her. And she leaves her hotel key for Dom. She sends a text with an interesting photo, which we never saw. Judgment Day is looking at it like in amazement. Gee, where have I seen this from? Everyone out there, I hope you got video, and I hope you look at your screen. Tell me if this isn't this to the T.
Lana is a beautiful woman, there's no doubt about that, but she is trouble, man. She's trouble. It's not
you're not
worth
lying. I mean, she's trouble with a capital T, dog. You're right. You know what I mean? And I ain't stupid. I got a text.
Trouble, man.
I got a text from Lana.
What is it? Lana is a beautiful woman.
Sorry,
there's no
guys, I
doubt
gotta
about that, but
replay
she
it.
is trouble, man. She's trouble. It's not
you're not
worth
lying. I mean, she's trouble with a capital T, dog. You're right. You know what I mean? And I ain't stupid. I got a text.
Trouble, man.
I got a text from Lana.
What is it?
My body is telling me, yeah, I gotta go put the fever on. I'm getting changed, dude. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? No!
Isn't that it exactly? Now, obviously, Lana set up Enzo and had Rusev beat the balls out of him. But 2 years ago, when we saw that Judgment Day segment, we said, you know what? This seems a lot more like the storyline with Lana and Enzo. Right down to the text message, the photo. Lana gives him the hotel key. Enzo's a little reluctant, shows up anyway, and then Rusev beats the shit out of him. I ask you this, my friends. How come no one in the media brought that up? They only brought up Janel Grant. I had someone today, it was so cute. Well, DT, you know, that was several years ago. And maybe they just totally forgot about it. That's not something you forget about. Especially when you watch the Judgment Day segment, the text message goes off and is a provocative photo. Let your fantasies run wild. And it's identical to Lana and Enzo in that segment. If you're going to bring up the Janel Grant thing, then be fair and say, you know what? WWE did do this at least once before, maybe more, but at least once before, where a female was pursuing a man, right down to the text message and the hotel key. When you see elements of that media ignoring that and then giving Janel Grant's lawyers this, you know, they just weaponized you. You know, are you trying to torment Janel Grant a little bit more? Or is it possible you're trying to find additional ammunition to help Janel Grant in her case against Vince McMahon? And that's the problem that I have with a lot of people in the media today. I don't have much of an issue with what Janel Grant said. She has a right to her opinion. She's angry. She's bitter. She's upset. Every emotion, depressed, felt used and abused. I don't doubt any of that. But again, at the end of the day, it's her version, it's his version, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. Anybody that's calling her a prostitute, awful. Awful. People also saying that she is 1,000% a victim and God bless her for coming out and being strong and this and that. You don't know. And, you know, if you have an opinion, then fine. But if you have an opinion, and especially if you're in the media world, then maybe you should take a step back and say, listen, I have a prejudgment about this. And I'm probably not the right person to report it because my feelings towards Vince might be a little bit biased and I might give something like this a little bit of, you know, careless reporting because Janel Grant absolutely brought this up in her speech in Connecticut. She brought that up. And I was like, my God, is anyone out there ever going to bring up the Enzo Lana stuff? No, of course not. Because God forbid that maybe WWE was not trying to weaponize Janel Grant with this. So again, you know, that's my problem with all of this. People out there have made this political. I watched people that I still respect to an extent. I watched people over the last couple of weeks disappointed that Vince McMahon's name did not pop up on the Harvey Weinstein files. Millions and millions and millions and millions of files. Vince McMahon is not mentioned once. And there are people out there in the fuck the media world, the wrestling media world, that were disappointed. And just let that sink in for a minute. They were hoping that Vince McMahon abused children. That is seriously fucked up. I mean, disappointed that someone is not on the list abusing children and you're disappointed from it. I said Harvey Weinstein, I'm sorry, Epstein, the other pervert. Epstein. The Epstein files. You know, how did people do that? So this is the problem, and this is why I'm not going to scrutinize Janel Grant and what she said. because I have seen people who have been played on both sides. I know guys. Listen, I'm too ugly and too fat over the years to be able to bullshit my way into getting laid in a nightclub, unless someone was a heifer like me. I'm just being honest. Back in the day, I could turn around and claim I'm a modeling agent, claim this, claim that, whip out a stack of hundreds, even though it's $100 bills, in front of like 50 ones. But I couldn't lie my way into getting laid. I've seen guys do it, and I've seen guys also get used. All right. I see it even on OnlyFans. I see, you see scam calls and catfishing and all this other stuff. We go back and you look at Anna Nicole Smith, and I don't mean to bring her up, God rest her soul, but she's the most notorious case of them all. She married someone in their 90s, so it was true love. All right, maybe, but most people think that she married the guy for his money. All right, there are women out there that are very sexually permissive. There are women out there that are looking for their sugar daddy. There are women out there that absolutely could fit all the boxes that Vince McMahon was looking for. I don't know if Janel Grant is the one to fill those boxes. All I do know is what I see, and so far what I see is accepting shit for years and years and years and years and years, and everything was cool in the gang. And the minute Vince stopped the NDA payment, suddenly this turned into, what I feel is the court of public opinion. I think her coming out this past week is the nail in the coffin that this case is about to be finished in court. Once June comes and they make their arguments, a lot of people think it's being moved to arbitration in June. They obviously didn't read it close enough. In June, Janel Grant's legal team is going to argue with the court why it should not be in arbitration. His legal team is going to argue why it should be arbitration. And my prediction is the court is going to decide that this is a contract dispute. Having all this NDA reform now is great. All right, but when someone is the recipient of an extreme amount of items for years and years and years, that's why some people are very skeptical about this. And that's why I think you got to speculate, not incriminate. Don't incriminate her. Don't incriminate Vince. No matter how much Vince is a deviant and dirtbag, I personally think Vince is a pig. I think Vince McMahon, having that kind of money, will find people that will play along because they're going to get millions in return. I truthfully believe that. I don't think every single person is a victim. It's just that, but we don't live that lifestyle. We don't live in that world. So we'll never understand it. We'll never truly realize, the both sides of the aisle of this. But what I've watched the last 2 days is pretty disgusting on both sides. The people that are vilifying her and the people that are vilifying Vince. No matter what your viewpoints are, at the end of the day, you don't know as much. We only know as much as what these court papers say and perceived, history. But at the end of the day, that's not what it takes. And I think this was always about the court of public opinion. I think now people have turned it into Democrat versus Republican. Her legal team is hardcore Democratic. She is Democratic. Vince and Trump are, pretty much in bed together. So that's why they're always associated. You look at the Epstein situation and people trying to hope that Vince was part of that. This is what it's turned into. And now you look at WWE and you look at TKO, and now they're perceived to be, co-conspirators of this. There was a few other things she said. I do want to mention two other things in closing that I find very fascinating. She says, quote, "Does it look like we work in a safe environment when the destination point, if you're hurt, is weaponized use of your experience on live TV every Monday night for months by their actions and reactions? That says a lot about their current leadership and what it says about me." I mean, this woman thinks that this whole Liv Morgan Dominic storyline for months was to make fun of her And Vince McMahon is not even involved in WWE anymore. But this is what people have convinced her. And if she is very naive and manipulative, and that's why Vince got as far as he did with her, you have people out there in the media world that are not doing her any favors by making her think that WWE for months, Dominic Mysterio, Liv Morgan, and all the wrestlers, they're all willing participants. Liv, how could you be part of this storyline? Dominic, how could you be part of this storyline? You need to step up. You need to draw the line. Triple H, I thought you were much different. And like, you look at this and you see how dangerous this gets. You know, I get it. You're an actor, you're an actress playing a role. But the way she perceives it, how could you play a role where you're weaponizing someone who was sexually trafficked? That's why people in the media, you're very fucking dangerous people. You're very fucking dangerous people. And unfortunately, and I'm sorry for doing this, I really thought about it and I was like, no, I'm not going to bring him up. But then I'm like, fuck it. There's a lot of Nick Hausmans out there. I think Nick Hausman learned his lesson, what happened with Jericho. A lot of you know I recently talked to someone who keeps in touch with Nick Hausman. Nick Hausman is doing fine. I do know what he is doing now work-wise, and he is killing it. And I think Nick Hausman, I truly believe, and I'm not saying this to be nice, I think his intentions were genuine. I think in his heart and in his mind, Chris Jericho definitely took advantage of that woman. You know, and I think it got to the point almost of obsession. You know, and once, you know, Jericho, listen, again, this is speculation. This is opinion. This is not facts. Again, I'm an opiner. Remember that. It's the first word on my profile. I think once it got to the point where now your speculation turns into an incrimination, because remember that video he did with his co-host? He was not speculating anymore. He was incriminating. And that's when I think, honestly, Chris Jericho, get his lawyers, send him a fucking letter. And once Nick Hausman realized, I can't afford a lawyer, I can't be sued, I'll lose everything. Nick Hausman just disappeared from wrestling entirely. There's a bunch of Nick Hausmans out there that know Vince McMahon is not going to sue them, that will just say what they say, and their intentions might be good. Their intentions might be good, but just because you could Google and do a lot of research and find information that other people put out there, you know, doesn't mean you're the sharpest knife in the drawer. And now you got this woman thinking that for months and months and months, WWE did a storyline to weaponize her. For months and months and months, Dominic Mysterio, Liv Morgan, Finn Balor, Carlito, JD McDonough, you know, they were all co-conspirators because they went along with the storyline. That's why people are very fucking careless and don't realize it. That's my honest take on it. So, all right. You know, tomorrow we'll get into a few other things. I'll tell you tomorrow, we got this doozy. She thinks like the government, you know, they were all like in on, you know, fucking trying to like get her to, we'll get into that tomorrow. She thinks that there was a covert investigation. It was a covert investigation. So, you know, there's some pretty interesting stuff out there. And again, I'm not gonna scrutinize her, because I do believe that she believes a lot of this stuff. But I also believe that, you know, just like that old concussion lawsuit, you know, there were some wrestlers that were part of that concussion lawsuit. They were in WWE for like 2 weeks and never took a chair shot or anything else. And the lawyers convinced them enough, like, nah, man, you know, you deserve a payday. You indirectly were affected by this. And the lawyers convinced them to the point to fucking sign the dotted line and be part of the lawsuit. And we look at it like, why is this person in on the lawsuit? You need money that bad? And then you realize that, you know, people are very gullible. And again, just because she looks like an educated, attractive, you know, urban neighborhood, you know, like, listen, I'm not going Kevin Nash territory, but you know what I mean? Like mid-upper scale, white neighborhood, educated, not criminal background, you know, keeps to herself. There's no history of any issues with her. You know, just because you have that preconception of who she is doesn't mean that she's not gullible. Doesn't mean that she's not, sexually curious. Doesn't mean we can't finish that sentence. We could speculate, but we can't incriminate. And that's unfortunately the shit that we've been going on for the last couple of days. And that's a shame. That's a shame. All right, before we get into your questions and then wrap it up, I do want to share with you 60 seconds of audio. And this is something that's not going to get any traction online because that X account Fade didn't put it up there. If Fade puts it up there, you'll have 4,800 likes about it. You'll have people losing their shit. Yeah, WWE, you're talking about tariffs. Feel bad about tariffs, but you're jacking up the prices for the tickets. Nobody will give a shit unless Fade puts it out there. And I have nothing against him. I follow him too. But, a lot of people I've been bringing up, and I saw this super chat came in earlier, and are talking about, the WWE now stopping parties, watch parties at restaurants and at bars and places, like even the kids' toy places and everything, and wanted my take on it. And obviously we know what's going on with WWE. They're not hurting. They're not hurting. I mean, WrestleMania 42 is still going to break records. You won't hear anybody in the media world do that right now. With all due respect, you'll have a Stevie Richards graphic. WWE's serious trouble. They're not selling tickets. They're breaking fucking records. It's just that, they're not going to let a dollar go by. That's what it is. So they're going to try to jerk every dollar out of people every way they can. I truthfully believe that TKO was going to end the parties, the watch parties at restaurants and bars and everywhere else because of the UFC template. They had already stopped that shit with UFC. Why would TKO say, it's okay for wrestling, but not for Ultimate Fighting? It's just that we never paid attention to it because how many of us go to a bar to watch a WWE Premium Live? Almost none of us. How many of us go to a restaurant? Yeah, I got to see Elimination Chamber. I watch it in the comfort of my own home. I'll hang out on X. I'll hang out on social media. I'll talk to my friends during a pay-per-view. We'll watch it. We'll comment about it. We'll have some fun. Something crazy goes down. I text my friend, do you just see what happened at Elimination Chamber? Holy shit, you see what Javon Evans just did? How many of us are going to be like, no, I'm going to go to a restaurant instead. None of us. So none of us really cared all that much. But, I was doing my history show. This is where a lot of this undiscovered stuff comes out or gets rediscovered. I was working on my history show, and I'm looking at a lot of the old press leading up to Elimination Chamber last year. And Sami Zayn had done like a media call with a whole bunch of different elements of the media. Did a 1 hour call and was asked a lot of questions, Sami Zayn. And somebody brought up politics. Now, this time a year ago, ICE was a thing, all right? Didn't just start happening 2 months ago. ICE was a thing a year ago. Tariffs were a thing a year ago. There was a lot of controversy a year ago. And somebody asked Sami Zayn about it. And Sami Zayn brought up old school, like, hey, back in the day, you had, during the Gulf War, you would have Slaughter, defecting to Iraq. And, even back in the 50s, he brought up how you had Nazi wrestlers. So politics has always played a factor in WWE. But now you see what's happening in AEW. And you see an ICE, abolish ICE shirt. And you see the crowd going along with it and chanting it. And it gets press. I've said this for the last 2 weeks. If I'm AEW, I'm happy about the extra press. But I ain't getting no additional viewers simply because, some of the crowd is chanting fuck ICE. What do you think? Protesters are going to be like, hey, AEW's in the town. Yeah, let's go. We could all shout, fuck ICE, get away with it. And we could maybe see a match while we're at it, get a burger. You're not going to get any additional fans because of it. Getting the additional press is fine. And listen, being able to speak your opinion. Listen, I'm not a fan of Brody King. Never been a fan of Brody King. But even I said 2 weeks ago that we live in a free country, that he has a right to some of his radical views. And his radical views are more of just, remember the big boss man photo, and that's where I think goes completely off the rails. But if you truly hate ICE, you truly hate Trump, if you truly hate Biden, if you truly hate Democrats, you truly hate Republicans, as long as you don't turn into a Looney Tune, and you just, have disdain, you don't like government, you don't like this, you have a right to your opinion as long as it doesn't get radical to a point of criminality. So, people being able to voice their opinions is fine. But for people out there that think that this is going to bleed into WWE television, that maybe wrestlers, going back to what some wrestlers used to wear in AEW with their shirts. If you think that that is going to trend over to WWE, you are sadly mistaken. And then I rediscovered, I should say, this gem from Sami Zayn a year ago. And for anyone out there that is wondering, forget about Triple H being involved with Trump. Just understand this is TKO mindset now. This is what Sami Zayn says about politics in WWE.
We just simply don't touch politics, as a company. Like, nothing about the political climate is reflected in the product anymore. And I think in some ways that's also a reflection of the society we currently live in and the sensitivity to these things. But I also think it's because I think WWE is meant to be like an escape from all that stuff, especially the more real and the more it's felt on a day-to-day basis for some people. And it's not like an abstract idea when you get into the conversation of tariffs. People are feeling that at the grocery store or, whatever, gas station. They're feeling it day-to-day life, or they will. The potential to feel it is certainly there. So I think you want to go somewhere where you just kind of forget about that stuff altogether. And I think that's what WWE provides now. Where politics has become so into the mainstream and it's almost turned into an entertainment form in its own right, which I have a lot to say about, but I won't get into that. All this to say, WWE, I think, is a place to kind of take that hat off and just enjoy it for what it is.
It's kind of funny. It's not his fault, obviously, but it is kind of funny that WWE is an escapism for real life problems, for example, tariffs. Yet they doubled their average ticket price. And for some tickets have increased them by 400% in the last 2 years. It's kind of funny. No, we're not going to bring up tariffs and stuff like that because people are hurting. They want to watch WWE and get their mind off of tariffs. Oh, that's so cool. The mind's off of tariffs, but now I got to spend $1,000 if I want to go see a show live. When you think about it, it's pretty flawed, I think would be the right way to put it. But for anyone out there that thinks that you're going to get to see any political stuff on WWE television anytime soon, it ain't happening. I saw Kayla Braxton the last couple of days say that she thinks that WWE should make a statement and pull Donald Trump out of the WWE Hall of Fame. And if you really look at it, that's based on hatred for Donald Trump. People will be like, oh, no, he's a convicted felon and this and that. That is a very dangerous, area to go. Because when you start making viewpoints about that, especially on a lower scale, then you got to think of everybody across the board. That's why when you see what happened with Trey Miguel in AEW, and people like, well, what about Justin Roberts? Or what about Sammy Guevara? Or what about when Excalibur said the F word way back when and this and that? People will try to, okay, well, if you're going to fry this person, you need to fry this person too. You're going to fry this person, you need to fry this person, and this person. You can't just fry the people that you don't like. And, I think that's where, that's why so many people in the wrestling world right now are very, very ballsy. I think might be the right way to put it, ballsy on things. Someone brought to my attention right before we went live, Thunder Rosa. She made a return. She looks great. And she was addressing a fan that pretty much went racial on her, because where she's from and everything. You could see she was legitimately hurt by it, and, I'm watching this and I'm saying to myself, this is one scumbag, not her, the person. This is one scumbag out of a million that are happy to see her back. There's always going to be that. Don't let those people get to you, because there are other people out there that are chomping at the bit to hurt somebody's feelings. And you're basically, bouldering, like propping people up to think, wow, there's one douchebag. He said that, and look how affected she's by it. Oh, I'm going to fucking troll her. I think you're just inviting the floodgates to open. And I think that's definitely a stupid way to go. So politics suck, man. That's why I don't get involved with them much anymore. By the way, I know people have been waiting on an update regarding the accusation I made towards Dave Meltzer and his exaggerations and his anger for Royce Keys. I don't know if it's anger, but let's just say that it's about to come to a conclusion. And unfortunately, once again, it appears that Dave Meltzer was wrong. I don't even want to call it lying. Because, when you realize what he's lying about, you say to yourself, why would you lie about something like that? Like, why is it that deep? Why is this anger? And I think the problem is, he obviously makes things up now and thinks that people are not out there waiting to shoot his shit down. And I feel bad. Because I've always been a huge supporter of his. But, you watch this in real time. And listen, I'll criticize Bischoff also, because Bischoff, once again, it's like blood in the water. He's a shark and there's blood in the water. And now it's again, let me get more ad revenue and let me make my comments trashing Meltzer. And you'll have 500 bullshit wrestling sites quote Bischoff about it. And he gets his press. And it's a shame. It's a damn shame. But once again, it appears that Dave Meltzer was grossly wrong. And I recommend each and every one of you out there to go check out Royce Keys' interview with Stephanie McMahon. I watched it and I was speechless. I mean, I had some ideas as far as his upbringing, but never truly knew the stories because it's never been really talked publicly. You hear things, but you always say, all right, well, until I actually hear from the source. And I've always said that to you guys. Unless you hear from a source, it's always, secondhand. And what he was saying was pretty rough, man. And that's why I told you guys weeks ago, this narrative that Meltzer put out that he's betting on himself and that's why he's going to WWE. It was like, what are you kidding me? He's going there because he wants to set his family financially for life. He wants to create a legacy. His lifelong dream has been, becoming, this hero, superhero, so to speak. Wrestling, is his life. And, this is the next step. This is the next chapter. And just because the final chapter is not AEW doesn't mean that there's any negative shots at AEW. And people take that shit way too personal. And I will tell you, I'm not going to reveal some of the things that I talked about with him, but I will tell you, indirectly that, there are some people in wrestling that flat out say, what does Dave have against me? Why is he like so against me? And you'll never hear Dave, say, he'll just say, I have nothing against the person. I just want to get the truth. I want to get the facts. And I blah, 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 blah. But, again, some information you've given, sometimes you're like, how's about once in a while, you either just say, yeah, nah, I appreciate the info, but that's not something I really want to put out there. It's like the age thing. When some people brought it to my attention, that guy that used to tune into the DTKC show that told me he went to school with him. My first reaction was, listen, it's none of my business how old he is. None of my business. Why do we need to know how old he is? But he's older than what's perceived. So what? Like, yeah? Like, did anybody ever check to see how old JC Mateo is? Or how old Tamatonga is? Or how old Jacob Fatu is? Or how old this person is? Like, what's the controversy? Like, but he's older than... Yeah? Whether he is or he isn't so. It's like some people are just baffled. Even some people that are no longer in WWE were just very taken back. Like, what does this person have against me? And you realize they don't. But for some reason, they don't understand that they're hurting people. They're hurting a lot of people out there. Just because people are on television doesn't mean they don't. That's why I always felt bad, big time for Lana back in the day. When she used to cry, about a lot of the fucking hate online. Kevin and I used to shout her out, and you realize, at the end of the day, people are human and they do take that shit seriously. We've seen too many tragedies over the years of famous people, they get ragged on and they really, get hurt by, oh no, she's a beautiful woman. Oh, she gets paid millions. Oh, she's an actress. She can handle it. No, that's not the right answer. So I think some people out there, sometimes if you're given information, you should always take a step back and say, do I really need to put this out there? Like, what's the benefit of it? Like, it's news. No, not always. Not always. So, all right. Let's get to questions. How long we've gone so far? We've gone an hour and 14 minutes. So we'll it's 9:15. We'll go to about, I'd say 10. Yeah, we'll go about a half hour, 40 minutes. We'll stick around a little bit. And by the way, for anybody who was affected by this storm, my thoughts are with you. Trust me, this is not something that I'm looking forward to. I tell you, this past 3 weeks ago, not even 2.5 weeks ago, is the 30th anniversary of the Big Apple Blizzard Blast. A lot of you probably wouldn't even ring a bell what that is. And I've brought this story up before. About 2.5 weeks ago was the 30th anniversary of an ECW event that happened here in New York called the Big Apple Blizzard Blast. It was the first week in February, and this was the story I've told over the years, that me and my friends walked home from Queens Boulevard. We went to that show. You could actually see us at one point during the Rey Mysterio stuff on camera. And we walked home because there was no buses. There was no taxis. We had to walk for about a good hour and a half in the fucking snow, in the blizzard. And we had, I don't know if it was like 2 feet of snow. We had a shitload of snow. And I just remember just being like locked in my house for the next bunch of days afterwards. But that was 30 years ago this month. And we're kind of like duplicating it now. Weird thing is, a foot of snow today doesn't feel like a foot of snow when we were younger. Anyone else feel that way? Like you get a foot of snow and you're like, oh, this is not nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. Still a lot of snow, no question. But for some reason, like 2 feet of snow, I don't think is as bad as what we thought it was when we were a lot younger. So, all right, let me give some super shout outs to open this up. Tommy D, what's my take on TKO now stopping bar and pub watch parties in Chicago for Elimination Chamber? I think this was always the plan. Because of the UFC side of things, none of us ever paid attention to it because, like I said earlier, I don't go to bars and pubs, restaurants. I don't go to any of that. So it doesn't affect me in any way. I will tell you, I think this reveals my age a little bit. If anybody that's around my age will remember that this was something also back in the day that they had stopped. That, there was a point where there was none. And then they started doing it because they wanted to get as many eyes on the product as well. I do believe that this is also because, hey, if you want to watch it, then yeah, just subscribe, ESPN. Or it's not even Netflix because these are watch parties in the United States. This doesn't affect overseas. So it's okay, go subscribe to ESPN if you want to watch the premium live event that badly. I think it's bullshit. I think how many people are possibly going to go to a restaurant or a bar to watch a WWE premium live event? I mean, in Chicago, let's say there's 40, I even think that's nuts. Let's say there's 20 bars and restaurants that were going to show the premium live event. How many wrestling fans do you truly believe are going to turn around and say, I can't afford the tickets for Elimination Chamber. I'm going to go to the bar or the restaurant instead. First of all, you go to a bar and a restaurant, isn't it like $15 for a drink now? And I personally don't think you're going to walk in there and say, let me just have a glass of ice. Like if you're going to spend money in a bar and a restaurant to watch a premium live event, then just go to the fucking event. You could get a cheap ticket for $80. It's not, $1,000 for the Boondocks, but I think it's bullshit. I think they should just let these venues increase the fee, double it. I personally think it's ridiculous. But this is TKO. This is the sad thing about the business world. This is what the business world wants. This is what the investors and the stockholders want. You have nobody investing serious money in TKO saying, I'm going to buy an extra 1,000 shares because they didn't release anybody during the pandemic. You're like, oh, they're just so nice people. Let me buy another 500 shares. No, they want to see bottom line. So it's a shame that this is happening, but I think it was going to happen regardless. It's just none of us paid attention to it. That's my honest take. Thank you, Tommy. Julius, thank you, my friend, for the 5 spot. I ever have Wingstop. And what's my guilty pleasure cheat meal? Everything's a cheat meal now. Everything's a cheat meal. I got more chins than a Chinese phone book. Everything's a cheat meal now. No, when I was, I plan on dieting again soon, but when I was dieting or on keto, give me like good Italian food. Like if I could have anything on a cheat meal, I would have a nice plate of eggplant parmesan, couple of good slices of pizza. Give me fucking fettuccine tortellini Alfredo. Give me some good fried Chinese food. That's fine with me. Actually, today, me and my wife had Peruvian food. I mean, I don't remember the last time I had platanos, but I was picking out on the fucking platanos earlier. My African gray parrot loves the sweet ones, digging in there, chowing away. But I never had Wingstop. There is a Wingstop not too far from where I live, and a few times we were contemplating about getting it because my wife is big on wings. She freaking would eat chicken wings every day if she could. I'm not that big on eating wings. The only reason why she doesn't eat chicken wings every day, and I'm sorry if this is revealing too much, but she likes flats. Anybody know what that means? Like when you buy chicken wings in a supermarket, you open the bag, you get drumsticks, and you get flats. That's why I don't like buying the chicken wings. She'll only eat the flats. So I'll pay fucking $10 for a bag of wings and make it, and then half the bag is not eaten. And I'm like, what about these? She's like, I don't eat drumsticks. I only eat flats. I'm like, excuse me. Like, if I'm a chicken producer, that gives me an idea. I would come out with the brand flats, only flats. You could buy just flats. But I'm not big on chicken wings. But I do like the drumsticks. I like drumsticks more than the flats. For some reason, I get extremely turned off. I'm sorry for using this as a prop. This is a pen. But pretend this is a wing. Have you ever seen fucking people in restaurants that will eat a flat, and they'll literally, it almost looks sexual. Like they'll put the entire flat in their mouth, and when they pull it out, it's just a bone left. I'm like, it's almost like a bad horror film when someone is dipped in acid and they pull up the body and it's just bones. They literally go like this, and then they pull it out, and it's just bone. I'm like, how did you do that? And it's gross at the same time, because most people that do that are usually even bigger than me. Meanwhile, I just put my mouth on a fucking pen. Thank you. Eggplant Parmesan is probably my number one cheat meal. Jim Kahn, thank you for the 5 spot, my friend. He listened to the Minority Report replays 7 to 8 years ago with the recent show with Joey. The world has changed, wrestling has changed, but still felt like old times. I talked to Joey this week. He is very humbled by everybody who either remembered him, grew up with him, or discovered him very recently. And we plan on having another episode together. It's either going to be right before WrestleMania, right after WrestleMania. We're probably going to do predictions for WrestleMania, but a shitload has changed. It's crazy to think the last time we did a show together, Roman Reigns wasn't even in the wrestling business. Leon Slater wasn't even born. I mean, there's like some things that we look back at like, wow, we totally like missed the entire career of certain people. It's insane. It's insane how many years that was. But tell you, about 45 minutes in, I could feel that flow, and it felt like old times. We had a nice time, and we went fucking 4 hours. That was not planned. We honestly, truthfully thought that we would go about 90 minutes. We didn't want to overstep, but we noticed, and he felt this way afterwards. We weren't talking during it. I didn't pause the show at all. But he noticed it, and I noticed it too, that almost everything we talked about, you could listen to it a year from now, and it's not outdated. Like the only thing that we talked about that obviously will get aged was WrestleMania. But all the other discussions, none of that really will ever get outdated because it's more of just a discussion. But I appreciate the kind words, man. I told Joey it's going to probably take a year for all of the old school, friends that used to tune in that still follow wrestling. It's going to take about a year for everybody to figure out that he and I did an episode again. And over time, you'll see some people come out of woodwork that we hadn't heard about in years. I've already had a few people, and shout out to all of them. It's crazy to think that we're still around doing this, but it was good. I had a good time. And it's a shame that it was under the circumstances of Kev passing away. Because I asked Joey off the shows, I'm like, Joey, if Kev didn't pass away, do you think you would have reached out? He says, maybe eventually, but probably no reason to at this point. So he probably still wouldn't have been talking. So Jim Kahn also says, Bischoff is quite the bullshitter, especially when Hogan gets brought up. Listen, he loved Hulk, and I'm not defending him, but that was his best friend, probably. And they're all devastated. They're all in disbelief that he is gone. And forget what happened with Hulk. It's a shame, but I also do think subconsciously, I'm not a psychiatrist, I think subconsciously there is guilt. There's definitely guilt for Bischoff. I think there's guilt for some who overprotected Hulk Hogan into thinking, Hulk, you're not a racist. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You go out there, you do speaking engagements, you talk to schools, you go to, minority neighborhoods, and you'll speak and people will be inspired, but you still get to have your haters. There's going to be some people you'll never be able to convince them that you're not a racist. So, you have nothing to prove, Hulk. And trust me, that's the, and you want a good example of it, look at some of the comments that were made about Hulk by some of those individuals before Hulk passed away. Hulk Hogan, I don't think he was afraid, to speak to people of color. I just feel that, because there's always going to be haters. He had his inner circle telling him, there's no benefit from it. People know who you are. Hulk, your true supporters, they know you're not a racist. You don't need to prove it. There'll be people that hate you, and there's nothing you could do about that. And I think there's that subconscious guilt that, that they kind of overprotected Hulk, because I personally think Hulk Hogan should have been revered so much more before he passed away. And I truthfully believe that if Hulk would have been have a little bit more humility and apologize, apologizing doesn't mean you're a racist, but apologizing for saying, listen, I know in my heart I'm not a racist, but I was very upset at my daughter and I said things that I shouldn't have said. And even though in my heart I'm not a racist, I still understand it hurt a lot of people, and I'm sorry. That was not my intention. And I should have known better. And maybe, I unfortunately apologized originally because, of what happened, not because of what I said, but because the results of it was, and you just go out there and just be a regular person for a few minutes. And I think he would have had so many more people. Of course, there's going to be people that would have hated him no matter what. But there would have been people out there be like, you know what, man, this is what I was waiting for. This is what I wanted. I just wanted to hear Terry for a few minutes, and unfortunately, he became just a character, and he just felt he didn't have anything to prove. I think there's a little bit of that guilt with Bischoff. He'll never say it publicly, but I'll say this. If he does have guilt, that is 100% a human emotion. There is nothing wrong with that. Having some guilt. Listen, I have some guilt for what happened with Kev. It was a health thing. And obviously, you can't force someone to accept, public assistance or accept Medicaid or go to a doctor, this or the, some people have too much pride, and, you can't force them to get treated for something. And sometimes we always feel we're I'll go next week. I'm not, I'm hurting, but I'm not death's door. But you still have a little bit of guilt, like, man, I should have forced this. Man, I should have pushed this on him. Man, I should have made the appointment anyway. Man, I should have convinced him this. Man, I should have done this. And if anything, that proves to Eric Bischoff how much he loved Hulk Hogan, how much I cared for Kev and for others. Having guilt doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means that you truly cared for the person, and, you have hurt for what happened. So, unfortunately for Bischoff, it never gets that deep, unless I super chat him $50. Then it'll get deep. And I say that jokingly. I mean, we all have to pay bills. Thank you, Todd, for the extra $5. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody tuning in. So, listen, I'm no perfect person here. I am heavily flawed, and I have put my foot in my mouth 1,000 times over the years. But in hindsight, I wouldn't take back almost all of them, because I learned from it. You change. We just talked about the Jim Ross thing, last week, reminiscing about, probably the worst thing I ever said on a show, and that's probably the only thing I've ever regretted saying on the shows. But other things, you learn. You become a better person over it. So I think people, if they fall, if you prop yourself up and you just be yourself, I think people, will understand. That's why I don't get much heat for a lot of things I say, because sometimes it'll piss someone off, but someone will say to me, I don't like what you said about me, but I know it was honest, and I appreciate that mindset, and I thank you for that. And I've gotten that many times, and, I think too many people are afraid. You want a good one? You want a good one? I know a lot of you saw that footage of JD making his return to House of Glory. And he was getting booed out of the building. And he went on social media and he said he loved every fucking minute of it. And 20 years ago at this time, I did the very same thing. And I had people calling me money mark, drug dealer, this, and that. And I have the footage in this computer. We've shared it before. I'm not going to do that tonight. But 20 years ago at this time, I made my on-camera debut. And that was the night that my fucking guy I was managing walked out of the building. And I ended up bringing Abby out there, Abdullah the Butcher. And then next day, I do have this picture, though. I do have this picture because I was talking to somebody earlier. This is my debut 20 years ago. Stapling a $20 bill to fucking Louis' head. And I wasn't even supposed to staple the money to his head. And this was 20 years ago. And I got booed out of the building. And people were cursing me out, calling me a fat fuck. And I didn't know how to react to it. I looked at one guy and I started thinking of it's all on film. One day in the near future, I'll reshare it. You see what happened with JD. You see what happens to me 20 years ago. When that was happening to me, I'm in the middle of the ring. And you know what's ironic about it? Holy fucking shit. I just realized it's the same building that JD was in. We were doing shows in that building 20 years ago. It's the same fucking building. But when that was happening to me, I started thinking of Rodney Dangerfield jokes. I have actually on video, one guy in the crowd was calling me a drug dealer and a fat fuck. And I looked at him and I said, you couldn't get a girl wet if you threw her in a pool. And people started laughing. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is good. And I had a ball. So when JD goes on social media today and says he loved every minute of it, I will tell you, 1,000% sure that 99.9% of what JD said was honest. That you get booed, you get shitted on like that, you will love every minute of it. There is a slight part of you that is upset. It's human emotion. I wasn't completely happy, but I was getting a fucking reaction. When I stapled that $20 to his head, listen to the crowd. I never stapled money to anybody before. Louis said it under his breath. I'm literally going to the ring and I'm on my knees. And I grabbed the fucking $20. I was going to staple it to his, I don't know if I was going to staple it to his arm. Oh, no. I remember what it was. I was going to shove it in his mouth like Ted DiBiase. Louis always brought a stapler gun to the ring for his matches. He had a match with Abby earlier in the night. So there was a staple gun already out there. And the story was I was going to shove the $20 in his mouth because his wife was pregnant at the time and he was going to retire. This is all true story. This is we played off a reality. He was going to retire for real. And the storyline was that he doesn't retire when he says it is. We tell him when it's time to retire. And we were putting him in hardcore matches because that's what everybody wanted to see. And the story was that if you don't wrestle, no problem. You'll just get your ass kicked. So Abby came out there, Sabu came out there, Sandman came out there, New Jack came out there. Not all in one night, but the storyline was, you don't tell us when you're going to retire. You need this money. How are you going to support your kid? So after he got his ass kicked by 3 people, I went in the ring. I said, I think you've earned your money. And I was going to shove the $20 down his throat. And when I literally kneeled him up to him, you could actually look closely. You'll see Louis say, staple it to my head. And I was like, what? He's like, staple it to my head. I'm like, what? He's like, staple it to my head. I literally took I went, boom. If you look closely, I fucking almost stapled his temple. He had to turn the other way so I didn't staple his temple. I've never stapled money to anybody before. But that was the story. I had no experience. I just went out there and did it. And I loved every minute of it. So we'll play that footage again another day. So, all right. Let's get into some questions. So we still have about 20 minutes. Kevin Walkie says, so that angle preceded the Ric Flair Shawn Michaels retirement angle? I guess so. What I did with Louis was 2006. That's when that started. But the storyline was real. You know, he was going to have a kid. He was getting married, or he had just got married. He was going to have a kid, and he needed money. And I thought it was a good storyline. You know, forcing someone to fight hardcore, that's like so opposite of Cornette. It's like he wants to pull back. He wants to just have regular matches. He wants to, you know, not kill his body. You know, he's going to have a son. He's going to be a father. And we were like, no. No one here wants to see you fucking wrestle. They want to see you bleed. So you fucking either go along with it. You want to make the money that bad? No problem. You know, that's why the new Jack in the Box is my favorite idea of all time. And that motherfucker Sean sabotaged it on me. Not Sean Rossap. Sean McCaffrey fucking sabotaged on me. If that would have played out the way that it was supposed to, I think some people would say it was one of the greatest indie angles in the last 30 years, 20 years. But he fucked it up, man. Dick. Yeah, Flair Michaels was 2008. Our idea was 2006. Trust me, no one in the outside wrestling world was looking at any indie stuff and saying, yeah, we should do that. 316 MMA, what's the story about Vince and Christy Hemme? Well, remember, this is all speculation. Again, speculate, don't incriminate. The speculation is that Vince McMahon harassed or gave indecent proposals to Christy Hemme back in the day. And this was right around, again, this is all speculation. This is right around the time WWE is about to announce the Saudi Arabia deal. And if you remember, the stock market, because of this, not the next day, but in the near future, had hit like, it was either $80 a share or $100 a share. It got so extremely high that WWE went on a signing brigade. That's when they signed FTR and like 40 wrestlers, 50 wrestlers, all in one swoop. And then a couple of years later, pandemic hits, and they're like, we can't keep all these people on the payroll. But the story is that alleged, is that when they were about to announce the Saudi Arabia deal, that's when Christy Hemme contacted Vince and said, unless you pay me, I'm going to go public with what happened. And the rumor is Vince gave her, $10 million or whatever. I don't remember the exact. That's the alleged story. Take note that she's never disputed it. I get it. Wrestlers are not supposed to shoot down every accusation made towards them. But I always felt that big ones, you should nip that in the bud. That's why I'm still baffled about Miz. I'm still baffled about Miz with Chris Van Vliet. If you guys saw that interview a couple of weeks ago, it was an excellent interview. But when I saw what he said about JBL, I'm like, you left that fucking shit out there for 2 decades or whatever it is. That could have eliminated so much bullshit on JBL over the years, and everybody just left it out there. For what? Why? And it's not, we can't shoot down every alleged thing. But that's the alleged Christy Hemme story. Again, we don't know the full extent of it, but that's what's been alleged. So, yeah, ESPN showing Royal Rumble. You know, ESPN wants to attract some of their viewers to buy wrestling, just like they want wrestling fans to buy their other stuff. You know, that's the deal that they are now. You know, WWE is now accepted as sports and entertainment. It's no longer that fake wrestling stuff. That's been going on for a few years, but now with this $1 billion deal, now it's solidified. You know, we got little blips of it over the years when you see wrestlers at the ESPN, at the ESPYs. And didn't they do like 3 or 4 years ago, there was an ESPY for like the greatest WWE moment of the year or something like that? Or didn't Sasha and Bianca win an award or something? And people were like, why the WWE awards at the ESPYs? And most people that said that were non-wrestling fans. But now it is widely accepted in the sports world. And you know what I think it is too? I'm not directly associating one or the other, but you watch baseball, a lot of you. I don't watch Major League Baseball as much as I used to. I'm not a big fan of some of the rule changes. Putting someone on second base in extra innings is dopey. But what I have noticed that's changed is how animated baseball players are when they hit a home run. And it's not just a bat flip. I'm watching people, run the bases and they're doing gestures of the fans and this and that. And like, if that was Pedro Martinez 20 years ago, he would have fucking drilled that guy in the face the next time they came up at bat. Now it just feels like there's a lot more of an entertainment, like a personality thing than anything else. I think it is kind of trickled into sports. It's no longer unsportsmanlike conduct, blah, 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 blah. 5 yards, we'll penalize at the kickoff. I think now there's just a lot more of that personality aspect in sports, and I think wrestling is a part of that. So, Nike fan says, do I think Finn Balor will ever be world champion or just WWE champion? I think WWE's following the same template as Drew McIntyre over the past couple of years. I think Finn Balor will become WWE world champion. I do believe it'll happen. I think, we don't know how many years left Roman Reigns has as an active wrestler. We don't know how many years left CM Punk does. I know a lot of us feel, at least 5 years. Well, you never know with injury. You never know. Something could happen. You just never know. I think it could open up opportunity down the line for Finn Balor, especially now that since we have 2 world champions. I think that definitely makes the chances a lot greater. WWE has had a lot of catching up to do because of the bloodline. Some of you remember during the pandemic, that infamous thumbnail that I put with Bobby Lashley and a few others on it, and I wrote, "Be careful what you wish for." And what it was that people were saying that Roman Reigns should carry all the gold. The undisputed WWE, the WWE Championship, the Universal Championship, like Roman should have an extended run. And what was happening is you had wrestlers that were getting hot, and you realized they had no route to the World Championship because Roman Reigns was just starting to make history. And I think one of the most recent examples of the side effects of it is LA Knight. LA Knight should have came into the WWE 2-3 years later, because he came in at a point where there was absolutely no chance that he was going to win a championship from Roman Reigns. And then Cody comes in, and it's like, no chance. So you see other names leapfrogging over him, and then you realize, okay, he's good for Slim Jim, he's good for house shows, he's good for TV main event, semi-main event. He's over with the fans. He doesn't need the belt. He's still over. And I think LA Knight, it's become an issue, but I do believe Finn Balor one day will become world champion again. I think he will become world champion. I think there'll be more opportunities. And there's always a chance LA Knight will as well. I think that's why you see what's happening with Sami Zayn now. Anybody find it fascinating? I know we haven't talked in a week, but, I reminded everyone that a year ago at this time, maybe 10 months ago at this time, Sami Zayn, I got to finish the story. Early we thought he was going to turn on Jey Uso the night after WrestleMania. That original look on his face when they were in the ring together, we were like, holy shit, he's going to turn heel, and it didn't happen. Then a few months later, remember, I have to become world champion. I need to become world champion. A lot of people forget. That's like 9 months ago, 10 months ago. I have to be world champion. And then he got into the storyline with Cross, and that derailed it. And then, they're kind of like having him fuck with Solo Sikoa. Here comes a little interaction with the bloodline again. And here's Sami Zayn teaming up with Jimmy Uso again. And then Sami's like, oh my God, now we're right back to like, oh no, please, not. And then you realize, okay, now feels like there's no path for Sammy to become, because a year ago we thought that this WrestleMania, Sami Zayn would become world champion. Now there's people out there that think, oh, it's possible they might do a three-way, and Sammy may actually finish the story after all. And this might be this. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's kind of wild to see suddenly people starting to think that. And yeah, that could very well happen. So, could very well happen. Listen, the way things have been going in the WWE, anything is possible. Anything is possible. All right, we have a Janel Grant question. And this is from Theme Parks and Things with Johnny. Thank you, Johnny. If Janel gets a big payday, do I think that's justice? DT, will the IWC and the mainstream media be satisfied? No. If she, listen, what's going to end up happening, in my opinion, this is my prediction all along, is that she got a shitload of perks and gifts being the girlfriend of Vince McMahon. The story that we're supposed to believe, and again, I don't know where the truth begins and where the lies end on either side, but we're supposed to believe that the entire relationship was a man just totally abusing and trafficking someone and appeasing her by giving her crazy amounts of gifts and attention, and when that didn't work, weird injections. And the thing is that, you know, a lot of people don't have sympathy for someone who's getting spoiled for 3-4 years, and the minute an NDA payment stops, suddenly it turns into a criminal accusation. But it's just like politics. There are people that despise Vince McMahon, despise Republicans, despise his relation with Trump, and Janel Grant, and I say this with no preconceived notions, but she could turn out to be the willing participant in this, loved every minute of it, was not criminally treated whatsoever, and she'll still be labeled by a lot of people as a hero. And here's the irony about it that I guarantee you nobody thought of before. The way Vince fed her lines, and she bought them hook, line, and sinker, the very same thing could be happening right now. She's being fed lines that she is a hero. She's being fed lines that she is a survivor. She's being fed lines that WWE has been weaponizing her for months. And she fell for it for Vince, and she's falling for it again. That's what happens to victims sometimes. People who are very easily manipulated. Have any of you out there ever met someone, whether you wanted to do it or didn't want to do it, or you knew someone that did it, or you knew someone that was a victim of it? You ever meet someone that you're like, wow, that person's easily manipulated. Boy, I could take advantage of her or him. Oh, wow, this person. You look at the Jordan Grace story today. That's not even a story, but became a story. There's a guy online who thought he was cute. He recorded a guy that obviously was mentally deficient, if we say it nicely, in a wheelchair. And he asked him what wrestling era was his favorite. Now, obviously, he must have asked him the question before and got a wild answer and said, oh, let me record this. And he asked this disabled guy in a wheelchair that obviously doesn't have all the marbles there. And he's like, I miss the bra and panties matches. I need the bra and panties matches. And it went viral online. And I give Jordan Grace all the credit in the world. She's the first woman to step up and say, that's about a big fuck you to the person who recorded this and uploaded it, taking advantage of someone who obviously has got mental issues and thought, ha, ha, ha. You know, and then you got all the people out there, oh, that's disgusting. You know, this is what wrestling, people still view that. And like, the fucking guy is mentally retarded. Come on. So my point is, I'm not saying that Janelle Grant is that. But what I'm saying is that there are some people out there that are very, very, very easily manipulated. And if Janelle Grant was easily manipulated to that extent, where she bought everything, you got people that could be doing the very same thing for her right now because they hate Vince or because they can benefit from it. It's a very disturbing thing because, she was a survivor. But has she actually grown from it and better prepared for that manipulation in the future? Manipulation doesn't have to just come from somebody who is going to penetrate you. Manipulation could be in the form of an accountant, an attorney, a stock market advisor. You're somebody who claims to be your friend. It could be anybody. An attorney could be anybody. Using your situation. That's why if you go back and you watch that video with Janelle Grant, this is not a shot on her. Go look at the reaction of the women that are around her. Go look at the reaction of some of them. You look at them and some of them was crying. Like, acting like, oh my God, like what she went through. And I say to myself, okay, I don't know how much of it is legit or not. But the way some of these, it felt like an act, not her, but the people around it sure felt like you're getting overly emotional with someone that many people believe that the only reason why the lawsuit happened is because the NDA stopped paying. It was just, again, when you see someone easily manipulated, that can still continue. And it's very well could be continued. Again, the fact that she thinks that the Judgment Day and the WWE weaponized her for months, that's pretty strong to say, don't you think? Roderick says Trump would pardon Vince. My question to you out of respect is, pardon him of what? Of what? If he committed crimes? I don't know about that. I mean, a lot of people are still waiting for Diddy to get pardoned. A lot of people, say, oh, Trump's going to pardon me. I don't think it's as cut and dry as you think. I mean, listen, I think if somebody, was alleged of something and then their penalty seems insanely extreme, like, let's put it this way. If the court turned around and, claim this and then sentence, where someone would normally get like a year in jail and someone else is getting 20 years in jail, yeah, you might feel, listen, Biden pardoned a shitload of people at the very end. Yeah, I know the accusations that maybe he didn't know that he was pardoning these people, but, there was, out of all of the crazy pardon, there was a few people, if you looked at it, like, yeah, I think that person kind of got a little bit excessive with their penalty. But I the thing is, pardoning him of what? Like, of what? If you're going to say trafficking, well, he didn't pardon Diddy. I don't know. Bobby Means. What's up, Bobby? What did I think of Mike Awesome? Mike Awesome, believe it or not, is one of my early examples of Don Tony growing up. And I really mean that. When Mike Awesome did what he did, I do remember covering it in real time. And I remember going on my hotline, I think it was, and I said that that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. Right, you have a bad marriage, you got financial problems, suck it up. That was my reaction when Mike Awesome did what he did. I thought, no, that's pussy. You be a man. Like, tough it out. Like, that's the cheap way out of it. And then as I got older, I started to understand more about mental health and depression and, just really things being worthless. Making somebody feel worthless. And I've experienced friends who have taken their life. And it's crazy. And, you know, I don't think I've ever been that dark of a place, but I've definitely had moments years back that I would say I have too much to live for my dog Peanut at the time, or my parents, or my friends, or even myself, or my hobbies. But I would say to myself, yeah, I could understand why somebody would go to that extent. Like, you know, you learn. I mean, that Mike Awesome was extremely talented. Fucking insane how agile he was. You know, him fucking ECW over, when you look back at the finances, you understand why that was done. Still doesn't give him, you know, a complete pardon because of it, but extremely talented and crazy motherfucker. So sad that he passed away this quickly. So, all right, we're going to start bringing this home. VJ, do I miss WCW? It's insane they became so popular in 96, and 5 years later they're out of business. Kind of reminds me of ECW as well. ECW, to me, took off in 95, and 5 years later, they're almost out of business themselves. WCW obviously was 1,000 times bigger. I miss WCW. I miss that not just competition, but I miss the channel surfing. I miss going back and forth. I missed covering. That's why I understood why so many people wanted the Wednesday Night War as hard as they did with NXT and AEW, because the Monday Night Wars were epic, and covering that shit in real time was a trip. And doing the ratings, and, you know, this person jumps to this company and this one might leave, and, you know, these people end up, you know, leaving altogether, and the radicals, and, you know, it was a trip. And it's crazy that it all ended in 2001. It did feel abrupt. It felt very abrupt at the time. There's no question that WWF was handing WCW its ass, but their numbers were still decent. Not revenue. We learned later on how much money they were losing. But ratings-wise, they were still decent, even for those times. And it was a very abrupt. So, Tristan, I was not comfortable with the storyline with Kane and Shane McMahon with the limo. I thought it was just a little bit over the top. The whole feud with Kane and Shane was ridiculous, culminated by the electric. I almost looked down for my car battery. I have a car battery in this room. Like, I'm not picking that shit up. Yeah, right down to the car battery and the electrocution. That's just, it was bizarre. But then again, Kane being a monster and doing See No Evil, I mean, you kind of had to, like, get disturbed with Kane. That's why it's so wild to see him now as mayor and doing what he's doing. And I didn't like it too much, so. The crowd response to Sami Zayn Friday, when they booed as far as him apologizing to Cody, I personally think, this is how I look at it. I feel the fans want to feel that somebody is stepping up. And what I mean by that is, it's not anti-Cody. It's more, I think for some fans, they feel that Elimination Chamber is being propped for Cody Rhodes. I think up to that point, they felt, all these things are being done to get a reason for Cody to main event one of the nights, or be very close to a main event. And I don't have an issue with it because how big Cody still is for that company. But I think fans were reminded that, yeah, Sammy, there was one point where Sammy needed to become world champion. I remember that. I brought it up numerous times over the last 9 or 10 months. I remember that. I must become world champion. I need to become world champion. Remember, Cross, you'll never be world champion. They're kind of like picking up from that. And I also think it's a little bit of a test. And it's, you know, of course the live fans are going to react to it, but the thing is, will they show up in droves to get that emotional moment with Sami Zayn in Las Vegas? I'm not so sure about that. Will people cry? Yes. You'll see all those podcasters online that'll have those emotions, and WWE will do a montage of it if they go that route. No guarantee they will. But I think for a split second, WWE fans wanted to feel there was an organic shift. I think that's what they kind of felt. And I think with the apology, it was like, oh, okay, same shit. I think that's why they were kind of a little bit annoyed. I think they want to feel that there's an organic shift, and they're part of the reason for it. So, Jim Kahn says flipping between NXT and AEW is very fun. And yes, keeping scope of what was going on. I never liked when they were leaking out spoilers. I never liked that. I thought it was a dick move to do. I get it. I mean, I think a lot of people forget that it wasn't just WCW being assholes. You know, Vince was doing the Huckster and the Nacho Man and Scheme Gene, and then they would mock once in a while, and people forget Cornette with those videos, he would shoot, not just on WCW, but, wrestlers in WWF at the time as well. Even Paul Heyman, ECW would take shots at there was more shots taken than I think people realize. I think for a lot of people, they narrowed it down to DX showing up on Nitro, Tony Schiavone spoiling Foley's win. No, there was a lot more to that. And, but I miss it. It's definitely the NXT Dynamite Wednesday Night War was not remotely the same. That was a trip, man. And we would have crazy late nights because Nitro, what I remember is Nitro would repeat right after. Like you would watch Nitro, and then I think at 11 o'clock at night, Nitro would air again. So you could watch Raw, you could watch Nitro the first hour, then Raw for 2 hours, and then go back and watch Nitro again. And next thing you know, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was doing my hotline at the time. So, starting in 1997. So, we would have some crazy late nights with that. All right. Let's bring this home. Dominic Gibson. Should WWE or AEW sign Ricky Sosa or Kuro? Here's the thing. We saw recently, we saw recently with Zilla Fatu, and then you hear things about Gabe Kidd, then you hear about a couple of people in New Japan, then you hear about this part. The thing is that right now, there's not a lot of spots to fill. And, I think that's the reason why there's some names out there still that you would have thought by now would have been snatched up somewhere, and they're not. And I personally, I'm not against signing anybody, but then you got to say to yourself, okay, now what? That's why when I hear rumors, WWE's thinking about bringing this person in or this person in, like I close my eyes and I think of NXT and I'll be like, okay, is he or she going to actually, leapfrog a bunch of people in NXT? And many times I say to myself, no, of course not. Then you say to yourself, okay, should this person sign with AEW, and will they leapfrog, all of the usual suspects that are getting pushed on, Dynamite and Collision? And I say no. I think for a lot of people, they look at Josh Alexander and they look at some names and they feel that, it's nowhere near where they thought that person would end up. The problem is signing someone is great. Finding a spot for them is another question. So I wouldn't say no assigning someone, but the problem is, what do you do with them once they're signed? That's why sometimes I see, people like, WWE needs to bring this person in, or AEW needs to bring this person in. And I say, okay, and now what? You sign them, now what? And then you realize, they're going to either sit on the back burner. There's too many people for them to leapfrog. And unless someone you're going to rebuild and be able to wait 2, 3, 4 years, there's not that many people that you would invest in. Look at this that I showed earlier. Anybody find something really fascinating with this? If you look at this, JC Jane, Andre Chase, and Tony D'Angelo are the only 3 that are still in NXT 5 years later from this list. And you say to yourself, okay, when do you decide, okay, 5 years is an awful long time. All right, when do we bring them to the main roster or when do we cut ties? And I think in the case of Gigi Dolan, I think in the case of Cora Jade, I think they looked at it, and especially, listen, nothing against Cora Jade, but one of the problems is that she got injured numerous times. And I think WWE just felt like, we're back to square one. And it sucks. I mean, I want to see her kill it in TNA. You look at Priscilla Kelly, and, I'm a little baffled, by her release. But there's only so many spots. And you bring someone in and you say, okay, what's the 2-year plan? What's the 3-year plan? That's why, nothing personal, but I'll throw a name out there. I don't want to see her released. I'm not saying she will be released, but I think this is a conversation people, especially if you're fans of hers, I think you really need to start thinking about. Can anybody figure out the NXT wrestler I'm going to bring up that people should be a little bit concerned that this person is still in NXT this many years later, regardless of injuries or not? Yep. Look, Roderick nailed it. The first person in the chat that nailed it. Nikita Lyons. Nikita Lyons. You see the house shows, you see how she's used, and you say to yourself, unless she is taking very, very little pay, you got to say to yourself, okay, when does she go to the main roster or when do you cut ties? When do you decide, okay, we're at that moment that we need to make a decision? And I think that that's the case with her. Again, I'm a fan. There's times that I've been frustrated, no question, but I'm a fan. And no, I don't think she should be released. But if she ends up released, I don't think many people should be that surprised because, it's not supposed to be a 4-year plan, a 5-year plan, especially in NXT. That's why Tony D'Angelo, even Stacks, this is their moment that, okay, either we have to get to the next level now so we can see a possible path to the main roster, or that's it. This is 5 years. 5 years now. So, all right, let's take 2 more questions, 3 more questions, and we'll get out. Twix, I don't know when Tessa will be brought in. I think especially under TKO, I think Tessa Blanchard, I think there is a path. I think the problem is that, and it's not necessarily the same as Fuck Ice, but I could picture Tessa Blanchard showing up on NXT television, and you get this. You're going to still get that. It could be 5 years later, and she'll still get that. I think TKO, there's a better path for her to come in. I think she should be brought in eventually, as long as she really has changed a little bit and grown up a little bit. Listen, Kev used to say this. She's not a racist. She's an asshole. But you also got to say to yourself, do I really want to hire an asshole? That WWE will avoid assholes. They don't want someone to, it's going to stir up the locker room a little bit and not get along with people. So just because she's an asshole in some people's eyes and not racist isn't mean she gets a clear path. I personally think she's proven for us that she isn't racist, or she's hit it extremely well. She is too talented. I think she is definitely she's definitely paid big price up until now. And especially that she buried the hatchet with La Rosa Negra years ago. And, not everybody. The problem is, though, listen, Jordan Grace did business with her on the way out, to go to WWE. She did business with her. But the thing is I don't know how many people that were in TNA that are now in WWE still would do business with her. Some people have been very fucking vocal. Just Google Tessa Blanchard in WWE and look at some of the women that are on that main roster that have definitely spoken out against Tessa for the last couple of years. I don't know if she'll be able to get through that. So, Benjamin, they did bury the hatchet. They did bury the hatchet. There's no hatred. They're not cool. They don't go out together, but there's no animosity. Whatever happened, it's fucked up. It's just like you look at David Starr and Trey Miguel. It was stupid what happened, 5 years ago, whatever it is. But, they've moved on from it. Yes, Trey Miguel was a little bit more outspoken and apologetic about it. And look, he still lost his AEW career over it. So, Chelsea Green. Yes, Bobby Mean just took the words out of my mouth. Chelsea Green. Very, very outspoken against Tessa Blanchard. So they would have, put it this way, I wouldn't put her on a level of CM Punk, but if Chelsea Green is Seth Rollins and Tessa Blanchard is CM Punk. That's kind of like where this would be. And I don't know if Chelsea Green has that kind of pull where, it's got to be cleared from her before they would, you know what I mean? So we'll see. Dominic says, could I see WWE and AEW having a working relationship when Cody takes over for Triple H after Cody retires? Well, there's no guarantee that Cody is going to replace Triple H. Some people think that Triple H won't survive 2026. Listen, I love some of my friends in the podcasting world out there, even some that were on TV for many years. And I think that's probably why we won't do episodes much together, because a lot of people know, especially one or two people in particular, if I do a Forbidden Podcast Door with them and they bring up Triple H, somebody super chats us about Triple H, and that person dares to my face says, I don't think Triple H will last 2026. I think Triple H is hurting the company and needs to be removed. I turn around and say, all right, bro, who would you put in his place, bro? No, it's not just him. Other people. I said, who do you replace him with? Now, who do you replace him with? Who do you replace him with? Just wait for the answer. Wait for the answer. I think people are like, please don't ask me that question. Please don't ask me that question. Fuck, he asked that question. It's not as easy as it sounds. Doesn't mean that Cody couldn't do it. And I think the best answer people give these days is Shawn Michaels. But Shawn Michaels has been doing a great job in NXT. NXT ain't Raw or SmackDown. It's much, much different. So, all right. Kevin says these women wrestlers delivering spine busters like no other time in history. I don't really have an issue with it. It is what it is. I mean, you do listen. There was moments where everybody was hitting cutters on everybody. There's sometimes people get fascinated with a move, and you'll see numerous people hitting it. If it's a move that is easy to execute and easy to take, yeah, I would do it too. Trust me, there's certain moves that are very, very, very easy to execute, and that's why a lot of people do them. Sometimes it gets a little ridiculous when you see everybody do it. Look, wasn't it? Here's a good one, and it's not easy to really execute and take, but If you slow it down, you see how beautiful it comes together. The Canadian Destroyer. I mean, it was not that long ago that almost everybody in fucking every match was, at some point, was hitting a Canadian Destroyer, especially on the women's side. It's like, what's a move that people be like, holy shit? Like if you're a woman and a Canadian Destroyer, that would be the move. Every motherfucker was hitting. Every match was hitting. It was like, oh, God. Tope Suicidas. It was not that long ago that everybody had to hit a Tope Suicida. Everybody. And then people started getting their feet stuck on the ropes. Yes, Benjamin, I did take notice that because we have Stephanie Vicaire, now Stephanie is Steph McMahon. You listen, as far as titles go, she'll still be Stephanie McMahon. You will not, this is not going to be a cope thing like with AEW. When she gets announced as WWE Hall of Famer, they will not say, welcome to the class of 2026, Steph McMahon. They won't do that. We're smart enough to know that there could be more than one Stephanie, more than one this. But plus, if I remember correctly, Steph was always her nickname. I remember Triple H would always call her Steph. You know, I think Vince never really said Steph. Vince was Stephanie. I think Vince would always say Stephanie. So, all right, one more and we're going to drop. We're going to finish. I don't hear wind, so I actually am planning on to take a walk outside. I got to throw some garbage out anyway, see what the snow situation looks like. So I should look now, but let's take one more question. Stephanie being the first McMahon to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Vince, especially after what happened, Vince won't go in. Vince will be put in after he is deceased. I think, trust me, let me put it this way. When ESPN follows their cameras or TMZ or anybody or Netflix follows their cameras and Triple H or Undertaker surprises someone with a Hall of Fame induction, trust me, if they use their cameras and follow Vince and they fucking record Vince, Triple H saying, hey, Vince, we're going to put you in the WWE Hall of Fame. Vince would probably look at the camera and say, go fuck yourself. And fucking leave. I think Vince wouldn't care if there's cameras on. Vince would turn around and say no. I just feel Vince, even though it would be a big fuck you to the haters, I think Vince will get put in after he's deceased. I personally think Stephanie has done more for the WWE than Shane. So that makes sense. And Linda McMahon, and it's not really the Trump factor. I think Linda McMahon has been more of like the one and most outside looking in. I think many people would feel that if you're going to put Linda in the Hall of Fame, she'd be probably the last one to be put in. So I don't really have an issue with Stephanie. I think Stephanie being first or second was the way to go. I think if things would have ended up differently with Vince over the years, I think Vince would have absolutely gone in. DMD, AEW, WWE, NXT. As far as Britt Baker goes, I did see that bizarre video that Britt Baker is saying that she's now part-timer because she was getting like threats and stuff like that. It's just very weird. I'm like, were cops involved? Did they get arrested? Did you press charges? Were the feds involved? Like, it's just, it's a little, I don't know. It's just, again, it's bizarre when I hear stuff like that. I hope that she was lying because you would never want to see someone get threats like that. But I think Britt Baker, if she were to go to WWE, they probably would put her on the main roster right away. I think that she's done enough. Plus, I could see her doing this. It's not trademarked by AEW. It's definitely something that WWE Universe would do. If she were to sign with WWE, I would put her directly to the main roster. I don't think she needs to go to NXT. I don't know if it would really help. NXT. She's a weird one because I never thought she was really good in the ring, but she definitely improved over her years in AEW and then just disappeared. So personally, I'm not a Britt Baker fan. I've always said that. I feel bad how harsh I was on her the early days of AEW. I think people forget the early days. Remember the promo on the cruise ship with Shivani? Well, we used to call her Britt Bella because we thought she was the sister from another mister. She was the Bella, that was not related, but in some ways related. Like they do a storyline, like, yeah, we're connected. I used to call her Britt Bella, and I used to call her Dr. Shit Baker because I thought that she wrestled like shit. But I shut my mouth awfully quick because she improved substantially. Britt Baker definitely is good enough for WWE main roster. So, yeah, we used to call her Britt Bella. So, all right, my friends, I think it's time to wrap it up. I will be live tomorrow night right after Raw. It's going to be interesting to see how beat up I'm going to feel with this snow. I just hope we don't get like 18 to 24 inches like they're predicting. I also hope that we don't get any damage in the Rockaways because that's where my parents have their house and they're fearing about all this high tide coming up because of the wind and the rain. Wind and the snow. But, I will definitely take my sweet ass time tomorrow. But I have to go to work Tuesday. I have very important customers I got to take care of on Tuesday. And unfortunately, in the insurance business, if I call up an insurance company Tuesday and say, hey, listen, I can't make it. Is there any way we could delay this to Wednesday? They're going to say no. So I got to get my ass to work Tuesday. So I'm going to have to dig my shit out tomorrow. And hopefully no scumbag fucking buries me back in. See, I have my truck in a parking lot, but sometimes when they plow the parking lot, like the fucking shovel, like lets snow along the sides. And I remember like 3 years ago, I dug myself out. I was actually digging snow at like 1 a.m. And I was so proud of myself. I'm like, I'm going to get up the next day. I'm going to be the only one with no snow. I literally got out of my house maybe like 8:30, 8:45. I go to my truck and the whole back of the truck is fucking filled up to the window. I'm like, these motherfuckers buried my truck back in. The sides were fine. But in front of me there was snow and behind me there was snow. There's nothing I could do. So I literally had to fucking dig my shit out again. So, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I thank you as always for your love and support. Keep checking out the website, wrestling-news.com. Keep downloading all the episodes that I do. If you like what I do here on YouTube, I know I don't ever say it, but subscribe. Hit the like button. That's telling YouTube that, hey, I kind of dig this guy. Maybe you should recommend him to someone else out there. But yeah, download all the shows. Keeps us relevant still amongst our competitors. And I try to do things a little bit different than everyone else. I try to make my takes. They're always honest, but I try to, look at things a little bit differently. And let me know what you thought about some of the things I said earlier. But everyone, I hear my bird chirping in the background. So he usually goes to sleep like 9:30 when he's here. So it's now 10:30. So he's been up for an extra hour. My wife is petrified of Fred. So I have to actually put him to sleep. So, got to close the cage, put a cover over it, and to be continued. So be well, everyone. I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, everybody.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. Doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.